My name is Chloe Reynolds, and at 30 years old, I run a multi-million-dollar tech company that my family knows absolutely nothing about. When I decided to drive home for my 31st birthday, I was just hoping for a quiet celebration, maybe one of my mom's homemade cakes. Instead, my mother looked at me from across our old, worn-out kitchen table and dropped a bomb. "We had to cancel your birthday dinner," she said. "We need the money for your sister Maya's trip to Asia." That familiar ache of being second best, of being the afterthought, settled deep in my chest. But they had no idea who I had become. 2 nights later, as we were all sitting down for a replacement dinner of takeout pizza, my phone buzzed. Little did I know that single call was about to tear down the wall I had so carefully built around my life. But before I get to what happened next, I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. And if you've ever felt like a supporting character in your own family's story, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. Growing up in Maple Creek, Oregon, a small town that had more pine trees than stoplights, I always felt like the odd one out in my family. Our house was a simple 2-story home with faded green siding and a front porch swing that groaned every time you moved. My father, Richard, was a now retired mechanic who spent his weekends covered in grease, coaxing old engines back to life in our garage. My mother, Helen, had been the librarian at the local elementary school for 30 years, and our house always smelled like old books and her famous oatmeal cookies. And then there was my sister, Maya. 4 years younger than me, she was the undisputed sun in our family's solar system. From the moment she took her first steps, she had this natural magnetism that drew everyone in. She was a whirlwind of talent and charm. There were gymnastics competitions, lead roles in school plays, and art shows. Maya collected awards the way other kids collected stickers. Our living room mantelpiece was a shrine to her achievements, groaning under the weight of her trophies and ribbons. My academic medals and certificates, they usually found their way into a desk drawer out of sight. My mother would tell her friends at potlucks, "Maya just has such a creative spirit. Everything comes so naturally to her." Then she'd add, almost as an aside, "And Chloe, well, she works so diligently." The message between the lines was always crystal clear. Maya was gifted, while I just compensated with sheer effort. I was 10 years old when I won the state science fair. I brought home the big blue ribbon and a small trophy. My father glanced at it over the top of his newspaper and said, "Nice work, champ," before his eyes went right back to the sports page. That same evening, Maya, who was only 6, had finger-painted a colorful swirl of what she called a sunset flower. My parents declared it a work of genius, framed it, and took her out for a special ice cream sundae to celebrate. This was the blueprint for my entire childhood. My straight A's weren't celebrated, they were just expected. When I graduated at the top of my high school class, my mother just nodded and said, "That's what happens when you spend all your time studying." But when Maya got her first B- in algebra, my parents took her out to her favorite restaurant to celebrate her breakthrough improvement. Money in our house always seemed to have a one-way ticket to Maya's pursuits. There were expensive acting workshops in the city, private art tutors, and custom-made costumes for her plays. No expense was ever spared for her. But when I needed a new laptop for my advanced coding classes or wanted to join a summer STEM program, I was gently lectured about our tight family budget and encouraged to find a part-time job. By the time I was 17, I was working every weekend at the town diner, saving every dollar I could for college. My parents had technically started a college fund for both of us, but Maya's essential activities had slowly but surely drained my half. "You're just so responsible with money, Chloe," my mother would say, framing my forced savings as a character strength instead of what it really was, a necessity. My birthdays became an annual lesson in managing disappointment. My 16th birthday party was called off because it clashed with Maya's regional theater competition. My 18th was remembered a day late, with a crumpled card from the drugstore and a $50 bill tucked inside. By the time I turned 21, I had stopped expecting anything more than a phone call. The dynamic with Maya was strange. She wasn't a bad person or intentionally cruel. She was just so used to orbiting at the center of our family's universe that she never noticed anyone else's position. And while I resented the profound inequality, I couldn't bring myself to resent her. She was my little sister. In those rare, quiet moments when our parents weren't around, we'd share secrets and laugh, just like normal sisters. But as we got older, those moments became few and far between. My father, Richard, now in his late 60s with more salt than pepper in his hair and hands, permanently calloused from a lifetime of working on cars, was a man of few words. He showed love through action, like changing the oil in my old car before I left for college or building shelves in my bedroom. But his eyes would light up in a different way whenever Maya walked into a room. With her, he found his voice. He'd ask about her day, her friends, her artistic dreams. My mother, Helen, with her perpetually busy energy and reading glasses always perched on her head, managed our family like a well-oiled machine. And yet, her organizational genius seemed to short-circuit when it came to me. She could remember Maya's favorite color for every year of her life, but she consistently bought me gifts in shades I'd never worn. After college, which my parents paid for in its entirety, Maya, now 26, decided she wanted to be a pottery artist. "I need to find my authentic path," she'd explained, and my parents had nodded with deep understanding. No one brought up the expensive liberal arts degree they'd just financed. When I graduated with honors in software engineering, I got a card in the mail. My family couldn't make the ceremony because it was the same weekend as Maya's first gallery opening. As I stood there alone after the ceremony, watching other graduates being mobbed by their cheering families, I made a decision that would define the next decade of my life. I would build a success so massive, so undeniable, that even my family would have to see me. I packed my few belongings into my beat-up car and drove to Seattle, and I didn't look back. The drive from Maple Creek to Seattle was only a few hours, but it felt like I was crossing an ocean. My journey to success began in a tiny studio apartment that cost more per month than my parents' mortgage. My software engineering degree and a burning sense of determination were my only real assets. I got an entry-level coding job at a mid-sized tech company and threw myself into it. I worked 16-hour days, took on every miserable project no one else wanted, and spent my weekends teaching myself new programming languages while my coworkers were out enjoying the city. In those early years, I called home every Sunday. The conversations were always the same. My parents would give me a detailed, minute-by-minute update on Maya's latest artistic endeavor, ask me a few surface-level questions about my desk job, and then rush off the phone. I never corrected their assumption that I was just another faceless cog in a corporate machine. A part of me wanted to prove it all to myself first, before I ever revealed the truth to them. Within 2 years, I was a senior engineer. A year after that, a project manager. By year 3, I was managing one of the company's most important divisions. But the corporate structure felt too slow, too confining for the ideas I had. I saw a way to use artificial intelligence to create personalized learning paths, an idea that could completely revolutionize education. My bosses thought it was too risky. So at 25, I took the biggest gamble of my life. I cashed out my meager savings, secured a small business loan that felt terrifyingly large, and founded Apex Learning. Our mission was to develop adaptive AI tutors that could make a high-quality education accessible to every student, no matter their background or location. Those first 18 months were a special kind of hell. I ate instant noodles almost every night and slept on an air mattress in our tiny rented office space. The breakthrough came about a year and a half in. Our adaptive learning platform, after a hugely successful pilot program in 3 underfunded city schools, caught the eye of a major venture capitalist. In those schools, test scores had jumped by an average of 35%. Student engagement had skyrocketed. The investor offered $8 million for a 20% stake in my company. That investment changed the course of everything. I moved from my cramped studio into a spacious penthouse with a panoramic view of Puget Sound. Apex Learning relocated to a sleek, modern campus in the tech district, complete with all the startup cliches: cold brew on tap, ergonomic everything, and a rooftop Zen garden. But the most valuable new part of my life was Brenda, the executive assistant I hired to manage my increasingly chaotic schedule. Brenda, with her unshakable calm and flawless organizational skills, quickly became my right hand. But more than that, she became my confidant, the closest thing to a real friend I had allowed myself to have in years. She was the only person who knew the full, complicated story of my family. "Wait, let me get this straight," she asked me once, her voice filled with disbelief after overhearing a particularly dismissive phone call with my mom. "Your parents have absolutely no idea you're a multi-millionaire CEO?" I just shrugged. "They think I do computer stuff in an office somewhere. I've never seen a reason to correct them." Brenda just shook her head. "That Christmas bonus you sent them last year was more than my dad makes in 2 years. I told them it was a company-wide holiday gift for all employees' families," I explained. The truth was, they had never really asked for any details. In our short weekly calls, they seemed perfectly content with my vague answers that work was going well, before eagerly launching into Maya's latest pottery class or travel plans. After a lifetime of feeling invisible, I had simply stopped trying to be seen, but my professional life was becoming harder and harder to hide. Last month, I was featured in a major tech journal's 40 Under 40 list. Apex Learning had grown to nearly 200 employees, and our software was being used in hundreds of school districts. And just last week, we had signed a $50 million contract with a state education system, a deal that would bring our technology to over 1 million students. The success was a strange mix of validation and profound emptiness. I had done everything I set out to do, but the one thing I craved, recognition from my family, was still completely out of reach, mostly because I had never given them a chance to give it. As my 31st birthday got closer, I found myself staring at the one family photo I kept on my desk. It was from Maya's high school graduation, all of us smiling into the Oregon sun. Despite everything, they were still my family. Maybe it was time to start building a bridge over the chasm I had helped dig. On a whim, I called my mother and told her I was thinking of coming home for my birthday weekend. Her surprise was obvious, but she quickly recovered. "Of course, honey, we would love to see you." I had Brenda clear my schedule, and I turned down her offer to arrange a private flight. "I'm driving," I insisted. I felt this need to retrace my steps, to connect with my past. Just a normal visit home. Brenda looked at me skeptically but nodded. "Should I have any of your birthday gifts shipped to your parents' house?" I laughed out loud at the thought of the extravagant gifts from my board members arriving at my parents' humble home. "Definitely not," I said. "As far as they know, I'm just a regular office worker who can barely make her Seattle rent." As I packed a small bag, deliberately choosing simple jeans and sweaters over my usual designer pieces, I wondered if I was making a huge mistake. Part of me wanted to roll up in a blaze of glory and force them to see what I'd become. But another, quieter part of me knew that real connection couldn't be built on a foundation of resentment or a desire for revenge. I decided I would just go with an open heart. Maybe, just maybe, this birthday would be different. Maybe this time they would finally see me. The drive from Seattle to Maple Creek gave me plenty of time to play out different scenarios in my head. I'd intentionally rented a simple sedan instead of driving my own luxury electric car. I wanted to ease into any revelations, not roar in with them. Maple Creek looked even smaller than I remembered. I drove past my old high school, past the diner where I used to work, and finally turned onto the street where my childhood home stood, looking exactly the same, yet somehow smaller. My mother opened the door before I even had a chance to knock, her face breaking into a genuine smile that made me briefly question all my old resentments. "Chloe," she exclaimed, pulling me into a hug that smelled of her familiar perfume. "Let me get a look at you." She held me at arm's length. her eyes scanning me with that maternal look that always made me feel both loved and judged at the same time. City life agrees with you. My father appeared behind her, his frame a little more stooped, his hair a little thinner. "There's my girl," he said, giving me one of his awkward one-armed hugs. The house was a time capsule. The same floral couch, the same paintings on the walls, and the same collection of family photos where Maya's smiling face was always front and center. The only new thing was a massive corkboard in the dining room, covered in pictures of Asian temples and beaches. It was a vision board for Maya's upcoming trip. "Maya will be here soon," my mother said, leading me to the kitchen. "She's so excited to see you, she just had to finish her pottery class." I helped my mom with dinner, falling back into the old dynamic of me being her quiet assistant. As I chopped vegetables, she gave me all the neighborhood news, and of course, the latest updates on Maya. "The local gallery just gave her a featured artist spot for next month," she said with a proud glow. "They almost never do that for someone so young, but you know Maya, she just has a way with people." I nodded, a little numbly. "That's great," I said, my voice flat. My dad sat at the kitchen table, pretending to read the paper, but occasionally glancing up at me. "How's that computer job?" he finally asked. "It's going well," I said, giving my standard, vague reply, "busy, but good." Just then, the front door flew open and Maya's voice echoed through the house. "I'm home! Where's the birthday girl?" She burst into the kitchen, a whirlwind of energy and brightly colored clothes. "Chloe," she squealed, wrapping me in a hug. "You look amazing. San Francisco must be working wonders." Dinner was, as expected, the Maya show. She gave us an animated play-by-play of her pottery class, her latest hiking trip, and most importantly, her grand Asian adventure. "I've been manifesting this trip for years," she explained, her eyes shining. 3 months, 6 countries. It's going to be transformative." My mother added, "Maya's been saving up, though the quick, nervous look she shot my father suggested otherwise." "Trying to," Maya amended with a laugh. "Being an artist is spiritually rewarding, but my bank account isn't feeling very rewarded. Mom and Dad are helping me out with the flights." My father cleared his throat and his eyes finally landed on me, though not quite meeting mine. "Speaking of finances, Chloe, your mother and I need to talk to you about your birthday dinner." My mother reached over and patted my hand. "We had originally planned a big celebration at the Gilded Spoon for you tomorrow night. We made the reservations months ago." I remembered the Gilded Spoon. It was the fanciest restaurant in the next town over, the place we'd gone for Maya's graduation. A little warmth bloomed in my chest. They had planned something special for me. "But we had to cancel the reservation," my mother continued, her tone apologetic but firm. "We needed to put that money toward Maya's airline tickets. The prices just kept going up, and if we didn't book them now, she'd miss the dates for her artist residency in Japan." The warmth in my chest turned to a block of ice. "I see," was all I could manage to say. "We thought we could just do something simple here instead," my father added quickly. "Maybe order some pizza tomorrow?" Maya at least had the decency to look a little embarrassed. "I told them we could just postpone my trip, but the residency dates are fixed, and it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for my career." My mother nodded vigorously. "Exactly. You understand, don't you, Chloe? You have your stable job, but Maya is at such a pivotal point. These connections could really launch her career." I looked at their hopeful faces. My mother's practical concern, my father's obvious discomfort, Maya's barely hidden excitement. After all these years, absolutely nothing had changed. I was still the responsible one, the one who was expected to understand, to step aside, to need less. I swallowed the lump of hurt in my throat and forced a smile. "Of course I understand. Pizza sounds great." Relief washed over their faces so visibly it was almost comical. Just like that, my 31st birthday celebration was casually downgraded and dismissed. I sat there pushing food around my plate, fighting the insane urge to tell them that I could buy the entire restaurant, let alone pay for a single dinner. But a stubborn, wounded part of me wanted them to value me for me, not for my bank account. I wanted them to see Chloe, their daughter, not Chloe Reynolds, the CEO. As I sat there listening to Maya describe every single stop on her meticulously planned itinerary, I wondered what on earth I was even doing here. The next morning, my actual birthday, was no better. My mother had forgotten to buy the gluten-free bread I ate, remembering only that Maya was now dairy-free. I had to walk to the local cafe to get something I could eat for breakfast. When I got back, my mom was helping Maya organize her travel documents while my dad was online, researching power adapters for Southeast Asia. "Chloe, honey, would you mind running to the store?" my mother asked without even looking up from Maya's passport. "We need a few things for dinner tonight, and I just can't step away." I agreed, my disappointment a familiar, bitter taste in my mouth. Even on my birthday, I was just the family errand girl. While I was at the grocery store, I checked my phone and saw dozens of birthday messages from my employees. Brenda had sent a picture of an enormous, elaborate cake waiting for me in my office back in Seattle. The message read, "We miss you, boss. Text SOS if you need an emergency extraction from family time." The whiplash between my two worlds had never felt so jarring. That evening, we gathered around the dining table for my party. My mother had ordered pizza, but she'd forgotten I hated olives, which were scattered all over my half. My father had bought a small cake from the supermarket that had "Happy Birthday, Chloe" piped on it in sloppy blue icing. No one seemed to notice the mistake. As we ate, my father said, "So Chloe, tell us more about this computer job of yours." This was it. This was my chance to finally tell them. But something held me back. "Still in tech," I said vaguely. "Things are going well." "That's nice, dear," my mother said, her attention already drifting back to Maya. "Now, about your connecting flight in Singapore." Maya launched into another monologue about her travel blog. "I'm thinking of trying to monetize it if I get enough followers. It could be the start of my personal brand as a global artist." "That's a wonderful idea," my mother exclaimed. "Our Maya, the entrepreneur." I almost choked on my pizza. I wanted to tell them about the patents I held, about the company I had built from the ground up, about the technology that was changing the lives of thousands of students. But instead, I just stayed silent. Then, just as I was reaching for a slice of my misspelled cake, my phone rang. The screen displayed "Office," Brenda's code for an urgent call I shouldn't ignore. Normally, I would have excused myself, but my mother just waved a dismissive hand. "Oh, go ahead and answer it, dear. We know your little office probably needs you, even on your birthday." Something in her condescending tone just snapped in me. I hit the speakerphone button. "Hello?" Brenda's crisp, professional voice filled the sudden silence of the dining room. "Boss, I am so sorry to disturb your family time, but I needed to confirm the details for next week. Your private jet is scheduled for 8 a.m. on Wednesday for the meeting in Seoul with the Minister of Education. Should I arrange for your usual suite at the Shilla, or would you prefer the Four Seasons this time?" The silence that followed was absolute. My father's fork slipped from his hand and clattered onto his plate. My mother froze, her glass of wine halfway to her lips. Maya's mouth was hanging open. I stared at my phone just as shocked as they were. We had no meeting in Seoul. "Brenda," I said carefully, "I think there might be some confusion about my schedule." "Oh," Brenda sounded flustered, which was completely unlike her. "I am so sorry, Miss Reynolds. I've just seen the urgent email from the Korean delegation. They've specifically requested you present the implementation plan in person. The board felt chartering the jet would be the most efficient use of your time, given your tight schedule. Shall I tell them you're unavailable?" 3 pairs of eyes were staring at me with stunned disbelief. I took a deep breath. The moment of truth had arrived, not in the way I had ever planned, but it was here. "Please tell them I will need to review the materials before confirming," I said, trying to sound professional even though my heart was hammering against my ribs. "And Brenda? Let's talk about this tomorrow." My mother's forehead was creased in confusion. "But you told us you worked at a tech company, in an office." "I do work at a tech company, Mom," I said carefully. The difference is I don't work for someone else. I own the company, Apex Learning. I founded it 6 years ago. Sophia let out a short, disbelieving laugh. Wait, you own a company? A company that has private jets? We don't own jets, I clarified, my voice steady. We charter them when necessary. But yes, Apex Learning is a significant company in the educational technology space. We have contracts with school districts all across the country. We're expanding internationally. My father leaned forward, his mechanic's mind trying to process the scale of it. How many employees do you have? Just under 200 at last count, I replied. And you're the boss? My mother said slowly, as if the words tasted strange in her mouth. The actual boss of all those people? I just nodded, watching as the full weight of it all finally began to land on them. My mother's expression shifted from confusion to something far more complex, a mix of pride, embarrassment, and a hint of defensiveness. Why didn't you tell us? She asked, a sharp edge in her voice that implied I was the one who had been deceitful. When would I have told you? I asked quietly. Our phone calls last 10 minutes, and 90% of that time is spent talking about Maya's latest project. You've never actually asked about my work. My father flinched. Sophia shifted uncomfortably. We always ask how you are, my mother protested weakly, and you always say, fine or busy. How are we supposed to know you were running some big corporation? Apex Learning was featured in a major tech journal last month, I said, unable to keep the hurt out of my voice. If you had ever just Googled my name, you would have seen it. My father looked genuinely stricken. We had no idea, Chloe. That's the point, Dad, I said. You never thought to look. You never imagined I could be doing anything worth looking for. That's not fair, my mother's chin lifted. We have always been supportive of you. Have you? I challenged, my voice gentle but firm. When was the last time you asked me a single specific question about my job? Do you even know what my company does? My mother opened her mouth, then closed it again. Sophia, who had been quiet, suddenly spoke up. So, you're like rich now? Is that what this is? You came home just to show off how successful you are and make the rest of us feel bad? Her accusation stung. No, Maya. I came home hoping to actually connect with my family. I deliberately rented a cheap car and wore old clothes because I wanted to be seen for who I am, not what I have. But now you're throwing it in our faces, she shot back, making us feel terrible about canceling one dinner when you could apparently buy the whole restaurant. I didn't plan for Brenda to call, I said, keeping my voice level. But yes, it hurts. It hurts that, after all these years, my birthday is still the first thing to be sacrificed. It hurts that you all just assumed I would be okay with it, because that's what I've always done. My father cleared his throat, his face filled with a pain I hadn't seen before. Chloe, we just thought, you thought Maya needed the support more, I finished for him. You have always thought that. And I'm 31 years old today, and you still treat me like my milestones and my feelings don't matter as much. My mother's eyes filled with tears. We are proud of you, Chloe. We've always been proud of how independent you are. That's just it, Mom, I said, the words tumbling out. You're proud that I don't need you. You appreciate my absence more than my presence. Sophia stood up abruptly. This is ridiculous. You disappear to Seattle, you hide your entire life from us, and then you blame us for not being psychic. There was just enough truth in her words to make me pause. You're right, I admitted, surprising her. I stopped trying a long time ago, but that doesn't change the fact that you were all so quick to cancel my birthday for Maya's trip without a second thought. My father stood up. I think we all need a minute. Chloe, I'm so sorry about your birthday dinner. We were wrong. Maybe we can still call the Gilded Spoon, my mother said, wiping her eyes. The suggestion, while well-intentioned, felt like a tiny bandage on a gaping wound. I think I need some space, I said, standing up. I'm going to get a hotel room for the night. Don't be silly, my mother protested. I need to think, Mom, I said, and I have some actual work calls to make. Sophia crossed her arms, running away again. Some things never change. Her words hit me harder than she knew. Was I running away? Maybe. But staying in that house with decades of unspoken hurt suddenly raw and exposed felt impossible. I'll call you tomorrow, I said, grabbing my purse. As I walked to the door, my father followed me. Chloe, he said quietly. I'm sorry, not just about dinner, about a lot of things. I just nodded, unable to speak, and walked out into the cool night air, finally letting the tears fall once I was safely inside my rental car. The Maple Creek Inn was a far cry from the luxury hotels I was used to, but its single presidential suite offered the privacy I desperately needed. After checking in, I sat on the edge of the bed and called Brenda. I'm so sorry, she said immediately. I completely misread the situation. I made it up. There's no soul meeting. I panicked. Despite everything, I let out a small laugh. Well, your improv skills are top-notch, but now my family thinks I'm jetting off to meet with foreign dignitaries. Don't you, though? She asked. What about that summit in London last month? I sighed. I don't even know what's real anymore, Brenda. I slept surprisingly well that night, and I woke up to a flurry of texts. My mother. Please come home for breakfast. We need to talk. Sophia. Sorry about last night. Kind of. And from my father, who never texted, call me. Instead of replying, I ordered room service. Around 11, there was a knock at my door. It was my father. He looked older and more uncertain than I had ever seen him. May I come in? He asked. He surveyed the suite with wide eyes. Nice place, he said, though I guess you're used to better. It's fine, Dad, I said, gesturing for him to sit. How did you find me? Small town, he said with a half smile. I swore the front desk clerk to secrecy. Your mother doesn't know I'm here. He leaned forward, his hands clasped. Chloe, I owe you an apology, a lot of them. I've been up all night thinking about what you said. And you're right. We always treated you and Maya differently. He explained that when I was a baby, I was so serious and capable, while Maya had been demanding and needy. They had gotten into the habit of giving her more energy because she always seemed to require it. We mistook your independence for not needing us, he said, his voice pained, when really we just trained you to expect less from us. I needed to hear it sometimes, I admitted quietly, that you were proud. They do matter, he said firmly, his eyes meeting mine. What you've built is incredible. I spent half the night looking up Apex Learning. The work you're doing, it's amazing, Chloe, truly. The genuine pride in his voice was like a key unlocking something tight in my chest. We talked for over an hour. He told me he'd always worried more about Maya because she seemed more fragile. We thought you were the one who had it all figured out, he said, his voice rough with emotion. As we were talking, my phone buzzed. A text from my mom. Please come home. I made your favorite lemon cake. I showed it to my dad. He smiled. She's been stress baking since dawn. The kitchen looks like a flour bomb went off. When we arrived, my mother rushed off the porch and pulled me into a fierce hug. I am so sorry, she whispered. I've been a terrible mother. Not terrible, Mom, I said, holding her tight. Just human. Inside, over slices of the lemon cake she had remembered I loved, she explained her side. I always saw you as the strong one, she said. The one who could handle anything. You seemed so sure of yourself. I was faking it most of the time, I confessed. Our conversation was interrupted by Maya, who hovered in the doorway. Can we talk? She asked. My parents left us alone. So, she began, awkwardly, you're basically a tech genius. I smiled a little. I wouldn't go that far. According to the internet, you are, she countered. Why did you never tell me? Partly because no one ever asked, I said gently, and partly because I was afraid it wouldn't matter, that even if you knew, you'd all still see me as just boring, responsible Chloe. She winced. I'm sorry about the birthday dinner, she said finally. I should have put my foot down. It's not just about the dinner, Maya, I said. It's about the pattern. She nodded slowly. I get it now, I think. And belated happy birthday, sis. For what it's worth, I always looked up to you. 3 weeks after that bombshell of a birthday weekend, I was standing with my family in a private terminal at the Seattle airport. Instead of just funding Maya's trip, I had arranged for all of us to spend 2 weeks together, a week in a luxury villa in Japan, followed by a week exploring Thailand. I still can't believe you did this, Maya said, bouncing on her toes with excitement. Consider it making up for lost time, I replied. The past few weeks had been a whirlwind of change. My parents had visited my penthouse, toured the Apex Learning Campus, and met my team. Seeing me in my element, confident and in command, had fundamentally shifted how they saw me. Our conversations became more balanced. Sophia and I were starting to build a real adult friendship. On our last night in Japan, my father raised his glass. To Chloe, he said, his voice thick with emotion, for having the courage to show us who you really are, even when we were too blind to see it. As our glasses clinked, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known was possible. The day after we got back, I surprised them again. Apex Learning was opening a new development office just 30 minutes from Maple Creek. I've realized I want to be closer to home, I explained. More surprising still was when Maya asked if she could apply for an internship with our marketing team. I still love my art, she clarified, but maybe it's time I challenged myself with something where I have to earn my spot. My parents began to evolve too. My father started volunteering to mentor young engineers at the new office. My mother launched a reading program at local schools using our software. On my 32nd birthday, we all celebrated at the Gilded Spoon. No canceled reservations, no drama, just my family, honestly connecting. I've been thinking, my mother said as dessert arrived, about what you said that night, about how we appreciated your absence more than your presence. You were right. We took your strength for granted, and my failure was pulling away instead of speaking up, I acknowledged. My father reached for my hand. The important thing is we're writing a new story now, together. Looking at their faces, I realized the greatest gift of the past year wasn't the recognition of my success. It was this chance to be fully known and loved, not for what I had achieved, but simply for who I was. The journey was far from over, but sitting there, I felt a profound sense of homecoming. Have you ever had to reveal a part of yourself that your family never knew? How did they react? Share your stories in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more stories about family growth and finding your true worth. Remember, sometimes the most painful confrontations can lead to the most beautiful reconciliations. Thank you for listening to my story, and may you find the courage to be fully seen in your own life.